listening to the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi, presented by DraftKings and VSiN. Here is Femi Abebefe.
Welcome to another edition of the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi, presented by DraftKings and VSiN. I'm your host, Femi Abebefe. As always, make sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. Our producer, Elliot Bowman, with us on the ones and twos. Michael, a lot happened in the National Football League since we last did our podcast on Monday. Super Bowl winning GM Terry Fontenot. I don't know if he's been listening or he just looked at his roster and realized, hey, I don't have a damn pass rusher, but he goes ahead and makes the move yesterday, trading for Matt Judon, Patriots pass rusher, giving back a third-round pick. 2025 third-rounder will go over to New England as the Falcons finally address the pass rush department with Judon coming to Atlanta.
Well, I mean, Super Bowl, how can you stop an organization that is a mastermind when it comes to independent thinking? I mean, they trade a third-round pick for a 32-year-old defensive end coming off a significant injury, and they don't redo his deal. He's going to be 1 year, so they basically could have given up a third round pick for nothing. So look, do they need help in the front seven? Yes. Matthew Judon's a pro. He's really going to be a good pro player for them. Will he be able to turn a defense that can't turn the ball over into turnovers? I doubt that. But he's going to help. That's a smart play. I think it's an expensive price. Interesting. Elliot, our producer, said that the two teams interested in Judon were the Chicago Bears and the Atlanta Falcons, both teams that ignored the three techniques or Lutu in the draft. I mean, seriously. You think you're just going to patch together a defense? So we'll see. We'll see. All those great young players that Atlanta said they had in April, they don't seem to be great any longer. They trade for Judon, but you got to give it credit. I mean, you can't deny the Super Bowl Terry Fontenot. I mean, this guy's on a different level of thinking than everybody else. Really,
he's playing that 4D chess.
Clear.
It's that 4D chess.
I mean, he could play 20 rounds of chess blindfolded. He just dominates. So, look, it is what it is. It's an interesting play. I think if you're the Patriots from their side, it reinforces they're not very good. Mm-hmm. You've read all the stories, as I've read, Femi, about how nothing has looked good for the Patriots offensively this summer. Yeah. They went and practiced against Philly, who media covers the team. And Philly, after the sessions with New England, we'll see the game tonight, but you might as well just put the Super Bowl trophy in Philadelphia based on the way they practiced against the Patriots. So there's a lot to be concerned about if you're in New England. They're going to have $100 million of cap room, but they're not going to have a very good team next year.
Yeah, I think the New England Patriots, they're realizing that, hey, we're very, very far along in this rebuild process. We really need to go ahead and take this year to sort of, I guess, revamp some things. What is the point of paying for a 32-year-old pass rusher? Because that's what's interesting to me with this deal is that Judon, he was holding out of those practices as a hold-in, not really practicing because he was upset with his contract. But Jonathan Jones over at CBS will give him the hat tip because he reported this morning that Judon is going to go to Atlanta without a new contract and that there's no expectation that one is imminent. So he's going to play on that current deal of $6.5 million. So is this just Judon wanted to get to a situation where he could compete for a playoff team or something like that? And because he said, I guess in his eyes, if I'm going to be in New England, at least pay me if we're going to suck. Is that kind of how you read this thing?
I can't believe he went somewhere to play on the $6 million. Obviously he's not happy with Mayo. I mean, I think that's part of it. I want out of here. If he's agreeing to this deal, without any extra money, he's not happy with the front office or the coaching or something there. Because if you're going to pay for 6.2, why would you want to move your family? I mean, there's no guarantee Atlanta's going to the Super Bowl. There's no guarantee Super Bowl winning GM's going to accumulate another title. I mean, I know Rich McKay's not involved, but there's no reason that Kaiser Soze McKay's not going to be in a Super Bowl winner. I mean, seriously, this is a functioning organization that doesn't function. So we'll see what happens. I mean, everything last year with them was the quarterback was wrong. They're 7-10. They pass up. They take a 32-year-old player for a third-round pick when they could have had Murphy or they could have had Jalen Carter 2 years ago. Imagine if you had Jalen Carter and Latua in the draft. This is where modeling is so important. Okay, if you go back and look at Atlanta and say, okay, we'll take Jalen Carter, We won't take Bijan. We'll take Jalen Carter, but we'll have Jalen Carter and we have Algier, who's a good player. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then next year, now we have Carter. Do we take Latua? Okay. Is that how we say it? Am I saying that wrong?
It's Leatu, Latu. So just Latu on the last name. Yep,
Latu. Okay. So you take Latu, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now you got Latu and Murphy playing next to each other, or Latu and Carter playing next to each other, and you sign Kirk Cousins. I mean, what does that look like?
I mean,
Tell me that model doesn't look better than this. Tell me. See, here's what happens all the time. Fans get so upset because you know when you criticize a team for doing something like this, oh, you just don't like the team. No, the modeling is important, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like for example, the Raiders. They don't take Jalen Carter, and then they spend $100 zillion on Christian Wilkins. They take Carter, they don't have to spend that money on Wilkins. They could spend it somewhere else. That's why modeling is so important. You have to think these decisions through. You just can't make them in a vacuum, which is what Super Bowl winning GM Terry Fontenot has been able to accomplish and still get promoted. Look, I bet he's going to have a wonderful suit when he goes to the press conference.
Oh, his suits are tailored very nicely. I'll give him credit on that one. But the Atlanta Falcons are odds-on favorites over at our show sponsor, DraftKings, -130 to win the South. I know that earlier this year you said that you liked Tampa a little bit more. You thought maybe like a team like the Bucs or the Saints could go ahead and challenge them. Now that they've made this move to get Matthew Judon, to give them some help in the pass rush department, which was a clear need for them, do you kind of pivot and go towards Atlanta winning this division, or are you still skeptical of the other pieces that they have on that roster?
I'm still skeptical. I'm skeptical, but everybody thinks their offensive line's elite. I think if you look at their tackles against good ends, they have trouble. I still think it's Tampa. I think Tampa's better on defense. You know, Tampa couldn't run the football the last 2 years and still won the division. Look, if I had more faith in Ricky Fowler-Carr, I would say, okay, it's New Orleans, because New Orleans finished at the end of the year, including Tampa beating Philadelphia. At the end of the year, the Saints were playing the best football of any team in the South.
Yep.
Right?
They were.
They had they screwed up against the Rams, Ricky Fowler-Carr, and then they went ahead and, you know, but they go into Tampa and they beat Tampa soundly.
Yeah, they beat the hell out of them.
So,
yeah.
I think New Orleans is tougher than Atlanta. I'm not sure how tough Atlanta is. Atlanta's 7-10, 7-10, 7-10. Like, are they tough enough? Can they cover? One player is not going to solve their issues on defense, Femi.
And I guess everybody thinks that one player on offense will solve their issues with Kirk Cousins coming in after what we saw with Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heineke last season. Cousins, though, coming off of the Achilles injury. I guess if it doesn't work out, they're confident that Michael Penix, who they drafted 8th overall, could step in and be a really good player for them. The Saints are the team that I keep kind of gravitating towards in this division. When we did our VSiN Pro Football Guide, I put the Saints as the team that I had winning the NFC South just because, like you said, I think they're just a little bit tougher. And also making the change, bringing the Kubiak in for that OC spot. I think that's an interesting kind of under the radar move for New Orleans, and maybe we see a little bit more from Carr, which I mean is grasping at straws. I am not a Derek Carr fan, but maybe we see just a little bit more because that team does have some talented players on that roster. Although you know what I feel about the head coach. I was reluctant to make that pick, but someone has to win division by league rules. Someone's got to go ahead and win the South. On the New England side, does this sort of signal, because people are going to talk about this, the season's coming up here in a few weeks, does this signal the quote-unquote tank job for the Patriots this upcoming season?
I think the Patriots get the first pick in the draft. I do. I think they're going to be horrible. Yeah. I mean, you know, and I don't think there's going to be any confidence in the new coaching staff. I think that we've just started to see the unraveling. See, they all think up in New England you can replace Bill Belichick with you know, anybody. Like, you know, it's easy. He didn't do very much. We know that the documentary indicated that he didn't do anything. But, you know, this is a team that's now run corporately. I mean, they've got Robin Glazer running it. They've got Jonathan Kraft in there running it. I mean, look, it's a different atmosphere. When you go that way, you know, the Krafts want to take all the credit for the winning. Now they're on their own. We'll see what happens. I think they're going to have the first pick of the draft. That offensive line's a disaster. It's still a mess. They haven't fixed it. Mm-hmm. They haven't fixed it. They signed Michael Owanu. They want him at right tackle, but he gained 80 pounds, so they got to move him into guard. Like nothing's in symmetry. Now you can say, well, Belichick did a shitty job last year. Okay. You know, the quarterback was horrible. The kicker was bad. No question. They're going to go with Joey Sly as their kicker. How many clutch kicks is he going to make for them?
I'm not sure if he's going to get opportunities to make clutch kicks, to be quite honest, just based on how that roster.
How would like to be Stevenson, who signed a contract there? Like, they signed all of Bill's players back.
Yeah.
Did they do that so they could say they suck? We gave them this money so that we can continue to tell you all that Belichick was a bad coach. So we signed these guys back, and since we've won one game, it just proves he doesn't know what he's doing. I mean, come on.
Yeah, the math ain't mathing, as the kids like to say.
Yeah.
What's most interesting, though, with Jonathan Jones' report from CBS, and this kind of spins to another team that we've talked about quite a bit this offseason, with the Judon trade, he said this: doing this indicates a great deal of trust among all involved parties, the fact that Judon is going to play on the existing $6.5 million contract. A trade with no extension requires heavy and clear communication, and I'm told that's what took place. So what the hell took place between Hassan Reddick and the New York Jets? Because he's now requested a trade after holding out and collecting $2.5 million worth of fines.
Oh, he's over $3 million.
Over
he's going to
$3
miss the preseason.
It's
he's going to miss another preseason game. There goes another check. I mean,
this is what we've talked about.
Yeah, I don't think people understand this, Femi. All right, so like if you're a Joe American fan here, all right, and you're seeing this and you get fined and you're in $3 million worth of fines, okay?
Mm-hmm.
You know, that you have to pay those fines off. You've got to have $3 million of cash in the bank. You know, it's like, it's not going to be, you know, this is like you don't pay less taxes. You pay everything. And so, you know, that's a hard thing. You got to be really wealthy to pay this kind of money. And Trent Williams has got to get done soon. We know. But the Reddick thing, to me, you can't tell me there was any communication. Because if you were going to redo his deal, why didn't you just redo it before you made the trade? You lose all the leverage when you don't do it.
Yep. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. The Jets, Joe Douglas, he put out a statement the other day when Reddick went ahead and requested the trade. He said, quote, "We have informed Hassan that we will not trade him, that he is expected to be here with his teammates, and that he will continue to be fined per the CBA if he does not report." I just like the fact that we said you're trading for a disgruntled player. Howie Roseman knew that he wanted a contract. They didn't want to give it to him. So they said, hey, take our problem. The Jets said, we're happy to take the problem. And now it's sitting right there at their footsteps as we're a few weeks away from the season. All right, we'll talk some JJ McCarthy on the other side. Before we get to JJ McCarthy and the unfortunate news of the meniscus tear that's going to keep him out for the rest of the season, Robert Saleh said of Hassan Reddick being out and requesting a trade, said that it's not a distraction for the New York Jets, which I kind of agree with him a little bit. He's not there, so it's like,
he's never been there.
Yeah, out of sight, out of mind.
A distraction if you've never been there.
You've never been on the team.
His locker's been empty since April. I mean, there's not been one stitch of clothes in his locker.
Does he even have a number?
In there.
Does he even have a number on the team? Like, do we even know?
I bet he has a number, but I mean, it's all that shit's been hanging in there for months. I mean, you know, like
it's collecting dust. I don't know what he's doing, but I mean, I guess. As it sits right now, he requests the trade. He clearly is not coming back until he gets some sort of adjustment to his contract. Is there ever a resolution in sight? Like, what has to happen for them to actually get is it just the games have to start coming and he'll show up and doesn't want to miss game checks? But he's already forfeited this much money. Maybe he goes all the way and goes full Le'Veon Bell. Like, is there some sort of resolution in sight between Reddick and the Jets?
I mean, I think it's this holdout is as dumb as the Le'Veon Bell one. Because why are you giving away money? Why did you hold in? You know, you must not like football. Why are you doing this? It's like you're not getting anywhere. You're not getting anything done. You know, and I think the Jets are stubborn. They're not going to pay. You know, Woody Johnson's not going to pay. He's probably told Joe Douglas we're not doing anything. So that's it. I think it's a dumb holdout. There's really, to me, the only end in sight is he comes in. And he's pissed off everybody so much that I don't think this is one of those where, okay, like Bosa or Carl or Chris Jones, where everybody's just happy, you know, when he comes back in, we'll figure out a way to get through the fines. Maybe they will. I don't know. But I think if I were Joe Douglas, I'd be damn embarrassed. I really would be because I would be able to. I don't know why he didn't say to Howie on the phone, Howie, look, this trade can't happen until I know what's going on with the contract. Like, you know. Like, who was bidding against him? Why did he have to do it on such a short notice? You know, what was causing him to react that quickly? I don't know. Nobody. He could have easily just said, hey, look, until I get a contract done, we ain't got nothing. The picks didn't involve anything this year.
Nope.
Right? Now, they say they didn't want to sign Bryce Huff. People told me they didn't want to sign because he's a part-time player. He's a really good player. You put the words part-time in there because you believe in your defensive line rotation. That's how you play. That doesn't mean he's not a good player. I don't see how the Jets are going to be as good. I think Franklin Myers was a good player. I think Bryce Huff was a good player. I don't think they're the same team. I know watching San Francisco tape, Kinlaw wasn't very good. I mean, Quentin Williams is outstanding, don't get me wrong. And Hassan Reddick's on the downslide. I'm not sure they're as good. Now, I know he wants to keep looking at his defensive talent, but, I mean, that's a coach speak.
Yeah. Yeah, Salah said that this gives everybody an opportunity to go out there and show what they have. The fact that Hassan Reddick is not there. I with some of these holdouts, I just think that, like, are guys willing to actually miss game checks? And I don't think Reddick, I wouldn't predict that he is right now, but the longer this goes out, I think you have to start kind of slowly putting him in that category of, hey, he might be crazy enough to just go ahead and miss game checks and hold out this whole season. Like, it's something to monitor for Jets fans and for people out there, that's football fans in general. Like, this situation is not good with Reddick and Gang Green. Another situation that's not good, and it's really unfortunate because after what we saw over the weekend, really excited to see what JJ McCarthy could do in the second preseason game and if he could push Sam Darnold to eventually be the starting quarterback for the Vikings. But unfortunately, JJ McCarthy went to the Vikings Monday saying that, hey, I have a little bit of discomfort in my knee. He goes under for the surgery. And unfortunately, it's a full tear of the meniscus that will make him miss the entire 2024 season, which is just a big blow to his development as a quarterback. But at least for the long term, it sounds like this will allow him to at least have a pain-free knee, which will help him out through the whole course of his career.
It also allows Sam Darnold not to feel the pressure of getting benched, right?
Yeah.
Because as long as McCarthy's the backup, then they're going to keep calling for McCarthy when Darnold makes a mistake. And so, to me, this removes that. Nobody's calling for Nick Mullins to come in the game. Nobody's calling for Jared Hall. They got to live and breathe with Sam Darnold. And look, Sam's got some strengths. You're not the third pick overall in the draft because you don't have some strengths. He's athletic. He's got a good arm. He makes too many bad decisions. He's not very good when it comes to when it comes to betting on him and the line in terms of winning for bettors. He's the worst quarterback, I think, in the last 10 years in terms of the betting props on him winning. So you have to take that into consideration. But look, they've got a really good offensive line. I don't know where Addison is in terms of, he was carted off the field yesterday. I don't know his receiver, what he's like. I think Aaron Jones was the reason the Packers were able to get to where they got to last year. So I think they've got enough players, and Darnold just doesn't try to beat himself making stupid decisions. They can be very effective.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because I think most people look at this, Sam Darnold's a quarterback, the Vikings are screwed, he sucks. And yeah, Sam Darnold, if you look up till this point, what he's done in the NFL, he has sucked. But I do think, like you said, at one point, people thought he could play. He was the third overall pick, and I think that this is the best situation that he's been in his career, given the coaching staff, the O-line, the receiver, all of that combination. I think that, I'm not saying that Sam Darnold's going to light the world on fire, but I just would not assume that he's going to be the Sam Darnold that we saw with the New York Jets and with the Carolina Panthers. I think he'll be better than that because I trust Kevin O'Connell to put him in the right position. And he's thrown to one of the best receivers, which we'll talk about a little bit later with Blue Chips, Red Chips. He's thrown to one of the best receivers in the National Football League.
He's got one of the best running backs behind him. So, that's a pretty good start for a quarterback. And he's got a coach who understands how to coach the quarterback. That's the other thing. He gets him. He can teach him and understand it. So, look, I think, can Sam Darnold win a Super Bowl? I'm not ready to go there. Can Sam Darnold not hurt them? That's where I would go. He's got to cut down on the interceptions, cut down on the bad plays, and not lose the game. And last year they couldn't run the football at all. They got rid of Dalvin Cook, which was a smart play. But then, when Madison wasn't the same back they'd hoped he was, that really hurt him.
Yeah, everyone's been sharing the Sam Darnold interception from training camp practice a couple days ago, and it's just a training camp practice. And I get, he's thrown a lot of interceptions in his career, so he can't just say, it's just practice, he'll be fine. But it's like, if he threw a touchdown, was everybody going to say that Sam Darnold's going to be great? No. So it's a little unfair that people are just like, look at Darnold, look at that. It's just like, all right, guys. It's like they're still 0-0. The season hasn't started yet. I want to transition over to the Dallas Cowboys, my team. They made a couple of moves along the defensive line over the last about 20 hours or so. The first one yesterday with a pick swap with the New York Giants, a 6th-rounder for a 7th-rounder in 2026 as the Cowboys bring in defensive tackle Jordan Phillips. Phillips has been in Buffalo, Arizona. He knows Joe Shane and Brian Dable, but the Giants want to know more of Jordan Phillips there, so he goes over to the Dallas Cowboys. Then they also, this morning, signed veteran defensive end Carl Lawson, who was with the New York Jets. Had an early promising career, suffered that Achilles injury, hasn't quite gotten back to that level. The Cowboys hoping that he can as they try to fill the void of Sam Williams going down with a torn ACL earlier at training camp. But we were talking about this during the break. Both of these moves kind of signal maybe the Zimmer and this Cowboys coaching staff isn't really happy where things are at with that defensive line. Micah Parsons, Odigizua withstanding.
Yeah, I mean, Lawrence hasn't played as well as he needs to play. I think, to me, that's the key. Macy Smith hasn't been very good. Their tackle situation is bad. Now they get Jordan Phillips, who's got the ability, but he's not always highly motivated. Carl Lawson gives them the guy to replace Sam Williams, but that's just another guy. Lawrence needs to play better. Macy Smith needs to play better. You know, I think it's going to be interesting to watch this team defensively, see where they go. Because with Mike Zimmer, you're going to be tougher. You're going to be more physical. You know, you're going to have to play the run. I mean, last year they played Overton and Clark inside linebacker. Those guys got ran out of there. They were soft as tissue paper, partly because of their size.
Yeah.
Watch that Green Bay game. I mean, Aaron Jones didn't go down on contact.
Nope. It felt like he was getting 7 yards before somebody would even touch him. It was pretty bad. And that's the thing that's a little bit of a philosophical difference, and it's something that they've slowly done. I know last year they had Jonathan Hankins at defensive tackle. He's another big body guy, but it felt like they just committed so much to speed in that front seven. It looks like Zimmer wants to bring more big bodies. They have Carl Davis, but he's banged up in camp, hasn't really been practicing. He didn't practice. He was on the rehab field when I was out there at training camp practice, which was unfortunate. You could see him from a mile away. But I think as long as if he can get healthy, they can continue to have some of those big bodies. Maybe they can help out in the run defense, because I think that's the glaring weakness still with this team is they can't defend the run. And that's going to be the opinion until they show me otherwise this upcoming regular season. As it stands with CeeDee Lamb, who knows? I don't think he'll miss game checks. He'll be there.
I wrote about that this week on VSiN. He's going to be there. What I think people have misjudged about the Cowboys, Femi, is how angry Jerry Jones was after that game. And I would have been too. If you go back and watch that game, you almost think the players were out clubbing the night before. There was no effort. There was no intensity. That's why McCarthy hasn't gotten an extension. That's why, none of the players, like Jerry's not passing out money to losers. Coffee's for closers. Basically all he's saying is put the coffee down. Put the coffee down. I'm not paying anybody. Now he'll pay Lamb, but he's going to pay Lamb at his number. Like the last thing Jerry wants to do is do what the Carolina Panthers do, have a shitty team and be over the cap.
100%. And that's what nobody's talking about. I don't know. For some reason, maybe people forgot what happened in that playoff game. I have not, because I still think it's probably the worst. Brutal. It's the worst loss in franchise history. And I don't think that's overstating things. It was embarrassing what happened against the Green Bay Packers. And CeeDee Lamb's on the sideline having a meltdown. Dak's throwing a pick six in the first half. And these are the people everyone's saying, why haven't they paid them? We saw the games. We saw the games. You're paying for. We've seen the ceiling with that. That's why I'm not really, as a fan, I'm not worried about them not paying those guys. Shit, I'd like for them to go try something else, because what's been happening, they've been knocking on the door for the last 3 years, and they haven't actually been able to actually kick it down. Do you know, I was talking to my brother about this, the Cowboys, and we'll talk about Jamar Chase on the other side, also get the blue chips, red chips, but I just wanted to bring this point up. Since 2003, when they hired Bill Parcells, the Cowboys have had 4 head coaches. Do you know that they've only been that's now 2+ decades. They've only been to the divisional round 6 times in that time span. Only 6 times, and they've only had 4 head coaches. Those are the results. Like this, it's bad. It's really bad. It's them and like the Commanders who haven't been able to get to the NFC title game out of the NFC. It's ridiculous. And for everybody saying that, pay CD, pay Dak, pay all these guys, I'd pay Parsons, but the rest of them, I think you're on notice. We got to see what you do in 2024. Because it hasn't been good enough.
That's exactly his mentality. Is like, why should I reward these guys for shitty play?
What the hell have they done? Nothing. They did nothing for decades, and now we got to pay all these people. It's utterly ridiculous. On the other side, though, I do want to ask you about Cincinnati Bengals wide receiver Jamar Chase. This feels like it's gone a little bit under the radar. We talked about it on our VSiN show, the Lombardi line, earlier this week about, hey, like nobody's really discussing Jamar Chase in this hold, and things seem to be cordial. Well, Jamar Chase now did not show up to practice, so this has gone from a hold in to what looks like a hold out. We'll ask Michael about that on the other side, as well as getting to Blue Chips, Red Chips, wide receivers here on the GM Shuffle. So for the first time this training camp on Tuesday for the Cincinnati Bengals, All-Pro wide receiver Jamar Chase was not present. It looks like this hold-in is now becoming a holdout. Head coach Zach Taylor said Jamar is day-to-day, and it will take it one day at a time. For why Jamar Chase was not there, I'm not sure what that means. It doesn't sound like he's dealing with an injury because he hasn't been practicing. So, Michael, this looks like this has turned into a holdout as Jamar Chase is still looking for a new contract with the Cincinnati Bengals.
Well, yeah, and I mean, look, he's got 4 more years of a deal that they own his rights to. He's got this year, he's got the option year, and he's got 2 franchises. Now, look, he's a great player. He's in our blue chip top 5 players. There's no question. And this year, he's going to be more dynamic than ever because with Jermaine Burton drafted from Alabama playing on the outside, they now can move Chase inside. You know, they had Tyler Boyd in there, right? You know, everybody, Tyler Boyd's a good player. Tyler Boyd averaged 10 yards a catch. It's so ridiculous how people don't even, a receiver catches a lot of balls and all of a sudden, he's a great player. Well, look, if you look at his numbers and you see like how hard is it to replace his 98 targets for 67 catches, 6.8 yards per target. He only had 28 first downs. And, how hard is that to replace?
It's not. It's not hard. It's
so they move somebody else in. They're going to move him in there.
Yeah, no, I think it's Chase is one of like probably the 3 best receivers for my money in the National Football League. Like, I love his game. I'm sure he's going to get paid a similar contract to Justin Jefferson. Maybe that's where the Bengals are like, hey, like we're trying to figure out the language of the deal and all that stuff where we sit now with the holdout. But he's going to get his money. I think Mike Brown, he's a smart enough guy to where he knows that this is one of those guys that you want on your team. He's good enough to be in that Jefferson kind of category. Let's go ahead and get this done with the chemistry that he and Joe Burrow have. You pay him, and then you probably just let T. Higgins walk. But that's what you talked about last week when we discussed Jermaine Burton having a pretty good preseason. They modeled this out. They drafted Burton to put themselves in a position to not have to worry about Boyd, and maybe they can go ahead and let Higgins walk next season and then just pay Jamar Chase as their bona fide wide receiver 1 in Cincinnati. But speaking of, let's get to some bona fides here for the pass catchers in the National Football League. Blue Chips, Red Chips, we continue with the wide receiver position, and your Red Chips list is as follows. Nico Collins for the Houston Texans had a big breakout season last year with C.J. Stroud. Puka Nacua, who was outstanding, broke the rookie receiving record for the Los Angeles Rams last year, now heads into year 2, dealing with an injury, but I'm sure he'll be fine by the start of the week 1, the regular season. Then Jaden Waddle for the Miami Dolphins. Brandon Ayuk for the 49ers, who every day we get a new update that's not really an update with Ayuk. It's the Steelers and the Niners. And then Amon-Ra St. Brown of the Detroit Lions. Michael, I don't know if you watched Netflix's Receiver, but Amon-Ra St. Brown might be in your DMs that he's now on the Red Chips and not the Blue Chips list because, boy, I don't think anybody in the National Football League has a bigger chip on his shoulder than St. Brown for the Detroit Lions.
I mean, being on the Red Chip's good, but I think when you watch Detroit, the more I watch Detroit this offseason, the more I fall in love with Penny Sewell. Like I said at the time, I would draft Sewell over Chase, and I still would do that today. Sewell's Anthony Munoz playing right tackle. He's going in the Hall. That's how good he is.
That's high praise.
That offensive line for Detroit, Sewell, Ragnow, and Decker. That's the key to their success. Really, those are the guys they got to pay. Everybody else functions off of them. And I'm not saying Amon St. Brown isn't a good player. He is. But you don't go into the game saying we got to take him out. But he's part of a really good team.
Yeah. No, that offensive line is dominant for the Detroit Lions. And it's why they're thought as a legitimate Super Bowl contender. They were on the doorstep and maybe should have gone to the Super Bowl last year with the way they were playing against the Niners in those first 2.5 quarters of the NFC Championship game. The blue chip list, these are the top dogs at the wide receiver position, guys that you think are those irreplaceable guys on the outside. Tyreek Hill, the guy who was voted as the number one player in the National Football League by his peers this past offseason with the Miami Dolphins. Justin Jefferson signed the massive contract with the Minnesota Vikings. CeeDee Lamb, who wants a massive contract with the Dallas Cowboys coming off an all-pro season. A.J. Brown for the Philadelphia Eagles. He got a contract this offseason. And then Jamar Chase, like CeeDee Lamb, also in pursuit of a contract now, turning his hold in to a holdout.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting what they do. Did they send him home? I mean, if he's not doing it, if he's holding out, they're going to fine him. You have to. They got 4 more years. Like I said, it's interesting to see what they do on that. I mean, was it hard to put together this blue chip list? I mean, those are the guys. Mm-hmm. They're number one receivers. They're hard to defend. They're really good at what they do. I mean, to me, it wasn't a hard list to put together. CeeDee Lamb's outstanding, 62% success ratio from target to catch. I mean, those are what you want. You know, you're looking at those numbers and you're saying, wow, Ayuk, who's a red player, he was at 70% in this category. So that's really good. You know, I mean, that's what you're kind of looking for. You're looking for who can get open and who has success.
You know what's interesting is that I was at the barbershop yesterday. They had the worldwide leader on, and I saw a statistic, and it said the Dak Prescott to CeeDee Lamb connection has like the highest QBR since 2020. I think it's like 91 point something or something like that. And like admittedly, yeah, Dak to CeeDee Lamb has been outstanding. It's been awesome. Both guys want contracts, but it is why CeeDee Lamb's on this blue chip list. He's a legitimate wide receiver. I just, hey, got to start winning some games if we're going to paying all these damn big contracts is kind of where I stand. But like, I don't think anybody's doubting the talents of CeeDee Lamb. He is legitimate. Whether it's a blue chip or a red chip, is there a wide receiver that is currently not on this list that when you do this exercise next year, you think might actually get onto this list? Because this might be blasphemous, Michael. Watching some of those Arizona Cardinals training camp videos, and I know they're just training camp videos, we're going to take them with a grain of salt, but damn, Marvin Harrison Jr. looks like he's already like a really, really good wide receiver, and maybe he starts being in this class by the end of this regular season as a rookie. I think he might be that good.
Yeah, I mean, I think Neighbors could be that good too for the Giants. He's that good.
Yeah, Neighbors has been outstanding.
He's a legitimate number one receiver. You could see it. There's just so many of these good guys. Rasheed Rice could be in the blue chip, red chips conversation. I mean, we'll see whether he gets suspended or not or what happens, but he could be in that conversation. Look, there's a lot of good skill. There's no question. There's a lot of good skill players out there. I didn't mention Devontae Smith or Waddle from the Miami. I mean, those are good players. Yep. But you can't put everybody on the list, right?
I think Raiders fans will be saying, "Where's Devontae Adams? How did he not make it?"
I don't think that was. He wasn't an omission. I didn't leave him off just because I wanted to. I mean, I think he left himself off. His production and his play wasn't the same last year. It just wasn't. I mean, Jacoby Myers had more production: 106 targets, 71 receptions, 67%. Devontae Smith had 112. Devontae Adams. Let me get his numbers for you. 1 second here.
Yeah, it's because Devontae Adams. I think you saw some of the frustrations a season ago, whether it's with the quarterback play or the offense in general. He's on board with this Antonio Pierce experience, but if the quarterback play is what it was like in training camp. Now, I saw those guys, obviously, in the preseason game against the Vikings. They look good. They led touchdown drives. But if it's not good once the actual real games start, could we see someone like Devontae Adams actually go ahead and say, you know what, trade my ass? Like, I don't want to be on this team anymore. Like, that could be a situation that brews for the Raiders.
What's the idea of trade? You want to trade a player when nobody else thinks when everybody thinks he's good and the perception runs wild. That's when you want. I mean, Trent Richardson. Oh, everybody thinks he's great.
Yeah.
But is he really great?
Didn't work out for the Colts. Yeah, did not work out.
I mean, Devontae Adams' success rate was 48.6, lowest in his career last year. So that's not a good sign, and he's trending downward in terms of yards per catch. I mean, last year he was at 15.2. This year he's 11.2.
Maybe he just needs to reunite with his buddy Aaron Rodgers. Maybe that'll fix everything.
Well, I mean, I think that would help. Yeah, I think it would. But look, I think Chase needs to get into camp. I think there's no Jefferson's not going to take a back seat because they lost McCarthy. They're still going to throw the ball to him all the time. Mm-hmm. That's not going to be an issue. So, I think A.J. Brown's going to have a better season. I don't think there's any question about that. But Philly fans are excited about their team. They really are. I think, to me, Lamb I don't know if Lamb's going to be a blue chip receiver this year, but look, the best one is Hill. It's not even close. He's the best one. He scares everybody.
Yeah, no, Tyreek Hill is as good as it gets, and that's why I said his peers voted him number one in the National Football League, not just receivers, for players as a whole. Real quick on Jefferson, last season, he started 9 games, he played in 10 of them, still went over 1,000 yards receiving. Like, he's ridiculous. They're going to give him doesn't matter who's throwing in the football. And a lot of that was Nick Mullins and Josh Dobbs and all this shit, like when it was really bad for the Vikings, and he's still produced. Real quick, we do have one preseason game tonight, a plethora of them on Saturday, no preseason game on Friday. Eagles at the Patriots. You talked about how the Eagles were dominating that joint practice. Over under 1.5 series for Drake May tonight, Michael. Where are you putting this at? Are we going to actually see Drake May?
If they don't play him, the Eagles said they're not playing their guys. So I mean, that means that it's a backup versus backup game. They should play him 3 quarters. No, he's not. After the 3rd preseason game, he's not going to get another rep. Brissett's going to be the starter. He needs reps.
I think it's more likely they play him 3 series than 3 quarters, which is just maybe that's how New England wants to do things these days. Did you see the?
I'm sure Jonathan Kraft's got it all figured out.
Did you see real quick before he wrapped this thing? Gerard Mayo was saying like, "Hey, if we have fights at joint practice with the Eagles, if you're a starter and you fight during this practice, that you will have to play the entire preseason game. But if you're a backup and you fight and you're looking for a roster spot, you won't play in the preseason game." So, hey, they kind of see the preseason games. Maybe it's as punishment. But
I wonder how Mayo would have liked that. Had he been a player? Had he been on when he was on the team? Imagine that.
It's just incredible. The more you hear, the more you just shake your head with what's happening.
Guys get these head coaching jobs. They're not qualified to be leading all these people, Femi.
It's tough, but we wish him the best of luck out there in Foxborough. But that does it for this edition of the GM Shuffle podcast. As always, make sure you subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. And the YouTube audience, keep commenting, keep liking. We appreciate all of the feedback that you guys have on our YouTube page. For our producer, Elliot Bowman, with us on the 1s and 2s. Enjoy week 2 of the preseason, and we'll be back on Monday to recap. Maybe we'll have a resolution in the Ayuk situation. I'm guessing we won't, but we can always hope for that. Michael, I'll talk to you on Monday, man. Be well.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, Femi.